Attention, soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and coasties. The holiday season is right around the corner. And some of you might be wondering, how am I going to afford to travel back home to visit my loved ones? Have no fear. Holidays for the Heroes is here. Last year, Holidays for the Heroes received donations from patriotic donors, and we were able to send 65 armed service members with a fully paid round-trip ticket and got them home for the holidays. Wait, but what's the catch, you might ask? Buckle your parachute strap. There is no catch and no hidden fees. Just contributions from good old-fashioned Americans who want to help heroes like you and show their appreciation for your service. If you're an active soldier and want to register, or an individual who wants to be a part of that growing group of patriotic donors, please go to www.holidaysfortheheroes.org. That's www.holidaysfortheheroes.org.
Coming to you from underneath a peach blossom. It's time for an episode of Be Awesome. Find positivity throughout your life and work. Just like our mascot rooster, Steve the Jerk.
Hello, Be Awesome listeners. This is your host, Joshua Peach, for episode 80, and I've got a return guest, and this is a great one. They're all great ones, but this to me is what it's all about. My now great friend and inspiration, David Cooks. David and I met on LinkedIn in probably 2016-17, just as a connection request. We had some mutual friends. He had a post about being a coach on a basketball team, and I liked his content, so I connected with him. And then all of a sudden, somewhere in 2018, I saw a post that he was launching his book, Getting Undressed, and just the title of it caught my eye, and I bought the book. And it sat for a little bit, and as luck would have it, I'll never forget, I was on the ferry going out to Nantucket for a sales call. I had his book, and he put a post up where he was delivering a keynote in Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin at the Kalahari. And I could tell there was no signage or anything. I've been fortunate enough to stand on that stage. As a matter of fact, I stood on that stage, that same stage, October 31st, 2017, delivered a keynote and drove very fast to Chicago so I could get home for a trick or treat. So I knew the space. So I said, that looks like the Kalahari in Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin. It was a Friday. And he responded and said, how did you know? And I said, I'll be there Sunday, which I was going back out on that Sunday. And all of a sudden I'm reading his book and realized that I never knew a very important piece to the Getting Undressed title of the book. Below it, it says, From Paralysis to Purpose. And I read the book. I noted it up, and we'll get into it. And by the end of Friday, I'm messaging David and saying, I've got to meet you, and we've got to do a podcast. Be Awesome just started. And we spent Saturday talking back and forth, and he lives in Milwaukee, right? You're in Milwaukee.
Yep, that's right.
Which is about 60 some odd miles away, or something out thereabouts, from Madison, Wisconsin, where I was landing. And we decided to meet in Starbucks, because I knew nothing about podcasts. You go back to episode 15. And we happened to be in the loudest Starbucks ever, sitting in the middle of this, doing a podcast. And it's great. The sound is tough, but it's a great podcast. So if you want to listen to a great podcast, episode 15. But David drove 60 miles each way on a Sunday night to do this podcast. And for the last 23 months, I have had the honor to be considered a friend to David. And we talk regularly, and we have an amazing bond and friendship. And like I say, he inspires me regularly, and he puts me in my place when I'm having some stinking thinking, because he'll put it right. So that is how David came into my life. That's where we're at right now. David, welcome back to the Be Awesome podcast, my friend.
Man, it is so good to be back. Can you believe this is episode 80?
Yeah.
I mean, when you told me that, man, this is fantastic. First of all, success. Congratulations on your podcast success, and that you've kept it going this long, and you've got such a great listening audience, and they're committed to what you're doing. And so I'm just glad to be back, and that we can actually hear each other talk. That was one of the most classic moments ever. I mean, I figured it's going to be a Starbucks. It's going to be on the west side of town, away from campus. So clearly there wouldn't be any students or anything in there.
And it was pouring rain.
It was pouring rain, and it's packed in there. And I don't know you, you don't know me. We can't hear each other, and we're just doing a podcast for the ages.
Yeah.
And lots of lessons in that, lots of lessons about taking risk. I'm driving up to meet you. I don't know you over anyone. You don't know me, and we connect, and the rest is history, so to speak, and so it's good to be able to come back and do this another time.
Yeah, no, it's it's funny. I could have seen you telling your wife, "Listen, if you don't hear from me in a couple of hours, this is the guy in the phone number that you can reach him at and ask where I'm at, because I don't know him." And I remember that. And I think you told me that you actually because you know what? It's funny. You and I talk almost every time. You almost I almost feel like you have a GPS, because I'm going to the butcher, the local butcher, to get my weekend steaks and things. But I'm almost positive that Saturday you and I talked, I was going to the produce barn, and you had told me that you were talking through this whole thing, and you told your wife, you're like, I don't know why, but I gotta go to this thing. There's just something that's going to come about this. And I had the same feeling about you, and yet we had only talked on the phone once.
Yeah, that was it. I know. I told my wife, I said, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to go to Madison and meet this guy, and I'll be back sometime tonight.
Yeah. No, and it has been, and I think that's what makes our relationship very cool, is that it was just so like out of left field. And what we found was we live in two different worlds, right? You're in Milwaukee, I'm in Boston. We've had, different upbringings, different challenges in life. But we found so many similarities and so much commonality in how we view things and how we look at things and how we handle things, that we've just built this amazing bond. Like I go to you so often, whether you know it or not, looking for advice. I don't ask for it, but I'll ask you questions for you to give it to me.
Yeah. Well, the beauty of it, what you just described, was it was just very organic.
Yeah.
And there was nothing manufactured about it. I didn't come to meet you to analyze you or to judge who you were or to see where you stood on things and all of that. We were there to give each other an opportunity to grow. Mm-hmm. And I think that was really what started it all. And you had read my book, and from my book, you can really get a lot about who I am as a person. And that didn't threaten you. That didn't intimidate you. And then I didn't know anything about you. And so I'm talking to you, and whatever you said to me, I'm like, okay, that's fine. I mean, I guess we boys now.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I had about 200 Post-it notes knowing about you and your book. You still have the record for most Post-it notes for nuggets of knowledge and takeaways in any book I've ever written, that was a very cool experience. Just share with folks, we're just gonna sit here and talk, but I think it's important when we've referenced the book. Let's talk about your book a little bit for those that didn't hear episode 15. What is it? What's it about? What made you do it?
Yeah, well, as you said, the name of the book is Getting Undressed from Paralysis to Purpose, and it's my memoir. It takes a look at my life from age 15, when I experienced a spinal aneurysm, all the way up until I wrote the book in 2016. And so it's a book that really tries to encourage people on getting from difficult places in their life to purpose. And part of that purpose being to serve others, even in the midst of something challenging that you might be dealing with. And there are three essential things that I think resonate throughout the book. One is your perspective, one is perseverance, and one is partnerships. I'm grateful that I was able to switch what I saw, because my perspective does drive performance, and how I saw my situation change when I realized there were people who were worse off than I was. But I also wanted to work really hard at it. I wanted to get back to life as I knew it. And then thirdly, I'm just grateful that I don't have to do this by myself. And I think sometimes we think, whenever we have challenges and difficulties, that we're in it all by ourselves, we're alone. And it's not the case. I mean, there are people that are always willing to help you, and those partnerships are huge and have been for me. You know, it's kind of funny, we talk about our relationship and how I was able to kind of pay you back, so to speak, and have you on my mini podcast called Insights from Getting Undressed. And you were able to share your insights with my audience and people on social media about the book. So it's kind of funny that we, keep doing this with each other and keep finding insights and things that encourage us along the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it's interesting how the piecing together happens, because in my intention with the podcast has been, and I don't do it frequently, I don't do it infrequently, I do it as a Be Awesome person presents itself to me, like as my journeys, starting with Santa Claus and just kind of working through all of that. And what I found is, and you were on my group, my anniversary of Be Awesome, where we had 43 of the past guests, all on. And what you saw on the board was a community. You saw a community of people that, for me, were as far as 6,000 miles away with Santa Claus, and as close to me as some of my local businesses that were having some struggles through COVID that came on and shared their stories, and everything in between. And you're absolutely right that it's the community that you're with. It's not necessarily the blood that is shared with family. It's not necessarily your neighbor next door. It's the people that you choose to let into your community that will either support and encourage you or discourage and hurt you. And I think that's one of the things that I found in my journey in life was I definitely had a lot of the discourage and hurt for the wrong reasons. Like, I thought that they were friends, or I thought they were people that I could count on, whether it was because they were around me, through this period or whatever. But I had to do a real gut check of, what's my inventory look like for people that I could call up and say, hey, I'm going through this. You've listened to me. I mean, this has been hard on everybody. So I'm not saying that it's been any harder on me than anyone else, but you're in the same boat as I am when it comes to, we've lost, monetary opportunities. We've lost, a big part of our livelihood lies on getting up on stage and talking to people and engaging in people. And I'll be the first to admit, I blew this whole COVID thing completely off. I was like, I was just looking at it. I was cleaning out my virtual wallet on my iPhone today. My last flight was March 12th. And I had no fear in flying. I had no mask on. I had no worry. I washed my hands, but I didn't have sanitizer. I didn't have anything that I go out with like a utility belt now with masks and sanitizer and wipes and so I blew this thing off. Like, I was booked solid through the end of the year. I had great opportunities, and I was like, there's no way this country is going to shut down for any period of time. There's no way we're going to not have events. There's no way. And then all of a sudden, May rolls around, 62 days after this whole thing started. I'm looking around, I'm like, what the heck just happened here? And if it was just me by myself, this, you went through it with me. If it was just me by myself, I'd be in the ground right now. I guarantee it. I guarantee it.
You mentioned the word community, and I think we've gotten away from community in this country. We've got a bunch of neighborhoods, but we don't have community.
Yep.
And the difference is that in community, there's trust and there's a way to work together. And that's what like you said, with your Be Awesome podcast, I remember that day when you celebrated it, and I saw the picture of all those people up, and I began to hear some of their stories, and I was so inspired by their stories. Like, who are these people? I'm like, man, I need to listen to all of your episodes.
Yeah.
And it was so inspiring that you had a group of people all from different walks of life who were able to have the common human experience of struggle and victory and ups and downs. And that's the common thread of living.
Mm-hmm.
And once you understand that, I mean, it does help to eliminate some of these prejudices and all that kind of stuff that are there. It's just, you're a human being like I am. And if you can help me and if I can help you, let's do it.
Yep.
And so it's a very simple thing. I think we've overcomplicated a lot of this, and we've made it much more divisive than it needs to be, because right now we're all trying to navigate through this thing called COVID-19.
Yeah.
And like you said, we have all on some level experienced some form of paralysis as in the ability to function fully.
Mm-hmm.
We all have had that impact. And for some of us, like you said, our business dried up like overnight, and left us wondering, okay, what do we do next? And where's the next opportunity going to come from? And we're still searching that out. But thankfully, we didn't get stuck in paralysis.
Yep.
We're starting to move forward and pivot and do some things to hopefully be ready for the next opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it's, one of the things that we touch on, we just did it just before you and I got to catch up a little bit. I think one of the things that people should need to really start looking at is stop being a Democrat or a Republican. Stop worrying about, things we can't control. Stop determining if someone's a racist or not a racist, and just have dialogue. You and I have spoken a couple times politics, right?
Right.
We've talked about politics, and I don't believe I know, and I don't want to know, and I don't want you to tell me, so don't put it out on, but I don't know who you vote for. You said
right.
You mail in. I don't know who you're voting for. We
That's
just have an open dialogue, and we're open to saying, this is wrong on the left, this is wrong on the right, this is what's right on the left, this is what's right. It's called dialogue. It's called discussion. And,
Yep.
I think that there's a lot of friendships, relationships that probably are good ones that are being ruined by wanting to be right and fighting for all of the stuff that's going on with regard to politics. And it's awful. And what we've come to with that is and correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm seeing in people is they're trying to point the faults in everyone and the other side of things and not find the good stuff, because we're trying to determine our answer based on the lesser of two evils we're trying to vote for the best of the worst, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not healthy for anybody. It's like in business, like if I was going up against you, so an association is going to pick a keynote speaker, and they do this all the time. They go, hey, we're going to evaluate keynote speakers, send out your prospectus, send out this, send out that. And then I'm sure you've had a number of exploratory conversations. We'll say, what are you going to talk about when you do? If somebody's like, why should we choose you over David Cooks? Oh, David, you don't want David. Here, I'll tell you all the reasons why you don't want David. I got him. I got a whole long list of them. No, I wouldn't do that.
Right.
I would never do that. What I would say is, I don't know why you shouldn't pick David, but what I do know is why you should pick me.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
That's the mindset that people have to have to get along. And if you can't have people that are like that, find different people.
There you go. Look, you made a very great statement earlier about you were living your life with people that were pulling you down, and
Mm-hmm.
you had to evaluate that and get some different people.
Yep.
And I think that's the key, is that, since when was it okay to get the worst of something?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who does that? That doesn't even sound right.
Right.
I like to have the worst cut of meat. Please, no. I need the one that's a little worse than that, but not as worse as that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And so one of the things that I know that I've been trying to do with my life is identify the best in people and rally around that. You know, instead of me focusing on someone's faults and the things that are wrong with their life, maybe I can encourage them in those areas that they're strong in, and then that can help them to address the things that maybe they aren't so strong in. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And I think that those are choices. One of the things, and you remember in the book I talked about my 4 friends in high school.
Oh, yeah.
You know, one was liberal, one was a conservative. You had an evangelical Christian, you had an African American guy, and somewhere in there was a guy that had a drug problem, a drug and alcohol problem. They were all different guys, and I didn't have a lot in common with them on the surface, but underneath that, they had a real concern for my well-being and for me to get through my high school after having a tragic and traumatic experience. And what that did was, that's what brought us together. It wasn't that we had the differences of race and religion and political views. It was we need to help Dave Cooks.
Yep.
We need to partner with him and help him get to the finish line. And I'm convinced that those relationships are still possible, but you have to choose to do that. You have to choose to do that and make that commitment. And I'm grateful that they did, because I don't know if I'd be talking to you today, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, I thank them too then.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I still talk to those guys.
Yeah.
I still talk to those guys to this day.
Yeah.
And I thank them all the time for what they did for me. They did not know when they were 17 years old that they were helping to plant seeds for the rest of my life. They were just doing what they thought was the right thing to do at the time.
Right. And those are I always tell people, you know, you when you get those types of relationships, you hang the heck onto them, you know, because you don't have those, you know, I'll tell you, I talk about social media all the time, and I think it's just awful. I've taken a social media hiatus of sorts. I've did very few posts. I haven't done much with Be Awesome on it, because it's gotten just so toxic, but it also gives you exposure and ideas on, you know, what I always say. If you have to wonder what somebody says behind your back because you're worried, probably not somebody you want to give an opportunity to say something behind your back. Even though it said behind your back, it's not meant for you to hear. Probably doesn't make sense for that, you know, for that to be. I've got 2 of my best friends I've had since the 3rd or 4th grade, twins. So, you know, it's like you say, oh, these are my best friends. Well, how do you have 2 best friends? Well, they happen to be twins. They shared a bunk beds until they were like 38 or something, whenever they both got married, you know. But, you know, those are two guys that they've always had my back. You know, they've always looked out for me, and they're always there. And, you know, I don't ever worry that either of them is in a party or someplace and going, oh, that Peach guy, look at his beard, or any of that stuff. I don't have to worry about that. And if I did, then I'd just say, you know what, I got to find different people, not worry about that stuff with.
That's right.
And that's the character and integrity, which is important for people to, you know, people to carry and to have, that, you know, a lot of folks don't have that. And that's why, you know, my relationship with you, I'm just so, you know, I just have such an honor to have it, because it was like out of the gate, it's, oh, we're just talking about this, talking politics, talk religion, talk social unrest. I think we've covered the entire gambit over the last 5 months, and we've never had, our tone never changed. It was just always this. It was just good dialogue. I had a thought, and it just escaped my brain as I was shifting. So it's going to come back to me, and I'm just going to randomly be like, oh yeah, this is what I wanted to talk about next. You know, but so you touched on this, because I think it's important I get a lot of people that listen that are in the association space. I use this platform. A lot of people say, why do you do the podcast? There's about 700 reasons. One of them is I send episodes to associations that are interested in talking to me. And you brought up the you know, what do we do? You know, the show stop. And you jumped on this way quicker than I did. I'm still way behind, but you're starting to do the virtual stuff. So how's that going?
Yeah, well, you know, it's I think it's going okay. You know, I've done recently, 3 or 4, and I've got a couple more lined up. And it's an adjustment. I think that much like when you're a public speaker, you actually are feeding off the energy in the room and off of the people, and that kind of gives you an idea of where you need to go. I mean, you know what you want to say. So this has been very different for me, in that I don't know if I'm doing a great job or not, um, because you don't get that feedback right away.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, one of the things that I have learned is that if your message is clear,
Mhm.
it will get to the people
Right.
when you're speaking with them. And as long as what's nice about this is a lot of times they record them so they can go back
Right.
and hear you again. And perhaps they missed something, or perhaps they want to just go back and make sure they got something the right way. And I think it gives you an opportunity to even be more impactful than being there and then taking off.
Yeah.
So again, here we go talking about perspective on how you look at it.
Mhm.
No, it's not the same, but there's nothing wrong with it being different. You still have to look at opportunities as a way to maximize them and get your message across. For me, if I can just encourage somebody or give somebody a little bit of direction, and how to pivot and navigate through difficult times, and if it's just one person, then I've been successful with that, and that's all I need. You know, uh, we all would like to speak in front of 10,000 people and be in a big arena and do all those types of things. But I'm just as happy talking to you right now as if I were in an arena with 10,000 people.
Right. Well, that's the ripple effect, right? So it's, and that's the when I started speaking, and that wasn't my, I didn't set out and say, hey, I'm going to be a inspirational, motivational keynote speaker and do all this stuff. I was very lucky. I was lucky with hard work and had this opportunity and kind of took it. It's when I started, I had this mindset. I've shared this with you probably 100 times. I had the mindset of like, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to go in a room. I'm going to tell them my grandfather's story. I'm going to tell them my story. I'm going to tell them all sorts of stories. And I'm going to walk out, and 100 out of 100 people are going to be wowed, smiling, laughing, crying, all of that. And their life is going to be better. And I got up on stage for the first time, and I just had blank stares, and I'm going, what do I do now? Right.
Right.
And then I drew it down and I said, all right, how about 50 out of 100? How about 10 out of 100? And then all of a sudden I got to this pivotal point. I remember it. It was in, I can't remember the name of the town, but it was I was on stage in New Hampshire, probably 3 years ago, maybe a little bit more. And I was doing a morning keynote, and it was okay. When you have one of those, man, I knocked it out of the park. You don't need anybody to tell you anything. I mean, you're on. But you and I are human, just like everybody else, and we're going to have okay and not okay days. Just because we're on stage doesn't mean the switch goes on. Sometimes it doesn't connect. And so I was feeling like it was okay, but it was impactful and meaningful to the level of what I was trying to say. And I'll never forget it. This woman I never met, she walks up and she says, I haven't felt a sense of purpose for the last year plus. And listening to you today has reinvigorated and given me purpose. And I said, wow, let's talk a little bit more. And we talked some more, and her son was killed in a car accident. And that was a trigger for her that just had this, feeling of, and I can't imagine. I mean, none of what I shared was anything even remotely close to that pain or anything, but something triggered her. And that was when I was like, man, one person, just one person. If I can impact one person, and that can be saying thank you at the grocery store and no one says thank you to that person. If that's one person that I can touch, that's 365 in a year. Never mind if I take that number and you start to compound, and it's that ripple effect. I help one person, and out of every 10, one person helps another person and does something. Now it's a ripple effect of positivity and change. And that's the mindset we all have to, don't overshoot it. Like, learn from me. You ain't getting 100% of people. 100% of the people are not going to like you. You're going to be lucky if 50% of the people like you. And if you can just impact one person a day and make their life a little bit better, then there's a higher probability that one of those people is going to do it for somebody else. And that ripple turns into a wave.
That's
and,
right.
That's the way to be. And it's people like you that does that. And I guarantee you do that at least one a day.
Well, this is interesting. One of the keys earlier when the pandemic first hit, I did a podcast with someone about, keys to surviving COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I said was to be intentional, to reach out to one person a day
mm-hmm.
that you've been meaning to reach out to for a long time,
mm-hmm.
and send them a text or pick up the phone and just see how they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that intentionality goes a long way. And like you said, it can be and nowadays, it's not at the grocery store as much and those types of things, but calling somebody and tell them how much you appreciate what they have done for you, or just call to say thank you, call a teacher or call a mentor or someone, just say, you know what, I was just calling to say thank you.
Yeah.
And those are the things right now that can bring us back together. Just those simple things. And you said, I've given up on trying to change the world.
Yeah.
That's too big for me. But I want to change the world that I operate in my close proximity. I want to make sure I have a good relationship with my neighbor on my right, my neighbor on the left, the guy across the street who makes great barbecue sauce that I can exchange my pasta sauce for his barbecue sauce.
Yeah.
Those type of things where, and that goes back to that word community that you talked about.
Yeah.
And that's what community really is. And when you get a group of people together and they can work together on some stuff, man, one at a time, who knows where it goes?
Yeah. I don't know if you can see this, but I had that brain drain, and I don't know if I can.
Did you write it down?
I wrote this note about 8 minutes ago, and it says check-in. And that was the point that I lost about 5 to 8 minutes ago, that I just wrote down before you started talking. That is one of your most incredible attributes. I saved your voicemail from last week or 2 weeks ago, where you just said, Peach, it's Cooks, checking in on you, just seeing what's going on. And you knew I had a lot of stuff going on, and we ended up talking, and you listened to me for about 5 minutes. And I finally said, hey man, how you doing? You're like, well, I'm good. I'm good. I just had this surgery done, and I just had all this. My stuff was like nothing. And yet you had your surgery, you had all this, and you still took time to call and check in on me. And that's something I've always tried to make it a point to call 3 to 5 people a week. That my address book is, I'm very lucky. I've got thousands of people on LinkedIn. I've got a couple thousand contacts that I've gotten to know that have made it into my phone book and my phone. And it's like, yeah, you got all these names and numbers, but if you don't use it and you don't care, then what's the point?
That's right.
And I'll be the first person to say that I've fallen off checking in on people through this COVID thing at times. And it's reminders like from you and others that I go, well, I got to get back to doing that. And then I get back on my horse and go. And it's like, look, we're all going through stuff, but make sure that you're checking in on people. Make sure that you're checking in on their mental health and everything. And it's rewarding, right? It's rewarding for the person that's getting it, but it's also rewarding for having that conversation with someone you haven't talked to in a while and catching up.
Yeah.
Now I remember why I like that person. I kept him in my address book, but yeah, no, that's something that I can't encourage people enough, and and not social media. Like I'm so like, yeah, I thanks for the happy birthdays on social media. I appreciate that. You know what I appreciate more? It's like you see someone that's a neighbor that lives right next door to the person, and they got to put it on Facebook, happy birthday, hope it's a great one. It's like, you're going to see him go check the mail later. Why don't you just go out and say happy birthday and, trade sauces, do something.
That's right.
We got to get more personal. And and that check-in's important.
Yeah, that personal touch thing cannot be overemphasized. I love people, and this has been a very difficult time for me because I was on bed rest, I had sepsis, and I had surgery, then I had a setback and another surgery, and so I haven't been able to interact with people. And when someone does stop by or picks up the phone and calls me, man, it makes my day. My wife, my wife can tell. She's like, "Did somebody stop by today?" 'Cause you are juiced up, and I'm like,
yeah.
"Yeah, so and so stopped by, or they gave me a call, or we did a Zoom meeting, or something like that." And
Yep.
and so on a personal level, like you said, for me to receive those is important, but also for me to do it, that's part of who I am, and it allows for me to take a moment and leave my problems on the side and try to talk to someone else about theirs. And
Mhm.
I think that so often we become self-consumed with
Mhm.
our own situation. And we need to get away from ourselves sometime so that we can heal ourselves.
Yeah.
And part of that healing is giving to other people. And you start to understand, man, I think I'm gonna be all right. I
Yeah.
think I can do this, and so don't ever lose the personal touch.
Oh,
Don't
yeah.
ever give that up. I don't care how technologically advanced we become. There is still nothing like a phone call, a legitimate hearing somebody's voice,
Yeah.
or embracing somebody for a hug, or giving the pound, or all that kind of stuff. There's never going to be a substitute for the human touch ever.
Yeah. Yeah. And putting your problems aside for just a few minutes and listening and caring about someone else's. I'll tell you, I'm gonna leave his last name, but Joe M is his name, and I get invited to this leadership summit every year, and less than, it's probably about 50, 60 people, so it's a really intimate. But man, it's jam packed with great speakers and professional development, and the locations that you go on that help with leadership. We went out to West Point for 3 days, and I think it's called the Thayer Hotel. It's a hotel right on the river, and we did the whole West Point experience, and so every year that when they open, they go, okay, everybody stand up, one at a time, introduce yourself, and talk about what's going on in your world. And so everybody starts going through, and there's just people just always just like, oh, this is going on, and this is terrible, and this is bad, and this is bad, and this is bad. And go through the list, and Joe M's almost always the last person.
Mhm.
And I think he does it intentionally because he's done it more than once. And he stands up and he says, I'm Joe M, and I'm just here to listen to all your problems and realize my life just ain't that bad.
There you go. Absolutely.
And I just die laughing because I know he's going to say, I know what he's going to say. But perspective, it's all perspective.
Yes. Perspective is everything, man.
Yeah.
It's everything.
My perspective story, I told you before we started, but Danny, my 13-year-old, apparently was treating his bed like a WWE wrestling match, and he was just bouncing and jumping on and whatever. Probably cabin fever, and ends up breaks the slats or whatever, the thing that the mattress and box spring sit on. So I'm not a carpenter, nor do I profess to be one, but I can fix it, right? So this weekend I go to fix it. I buy all the new pieces of wood, I make new slats, I do all this, but I need the center legs, the metal legs to put in the middle to make sure that the wood doesn't break in. So I go to the furniture store and I order these metal pieces. They didn't have them in stock. This was on Sunday, and they said, oh, we don't have them here, but they'll be here on Wednesday. Fair enough, no problem. We'll figure something out. So yesterday, the woman customer service for the furniture store, Jordan's, give them a plug because they're awesome. Jordan's Furniture in Avon, customer service woman calls, and she is like unbelievably upset to talk to me. Like she thinks this is going to be like the worst conversation because they promised to have these things on Wednesday. They know that obviously the bed can't be put together without them. And she's like, I'm so sorry. I know what an inconvenience this is to you. And I just listened to her for a second. I said, ma'am, I have no power in my house. And I don't know when I'm going to have power again. And I haven't had it for quite some time. And my food is getting ruined. And my family's getting ants in the pants because my son can't do remote learning and I've got all this stuff going on. I got to be honest with you. Picking up these table legs is the last thing on my list of things to do today. I'm good. You take your time. You don't worry, and not a problem. And she was like, she had this sense of relief, like she was delivering bad news, thinking that's the worst thing I'm going to listen to my dad. I'm like, if what I have to worry about, if the worst thing I have to worry about is those table legs,
that's right.
Then I got bigger problems. I got to find bigger problems. But that's, people don't realize that, things are worse for people and some things just don't matter.
Some things don't matter. You're absolutely right. I think, and I say this all the time. It's a great day to be alive.
Yep.
It's a great time to be alive. And one of the things that I live by, and it came from my coach in basketball, is that as long as there's time on the clock, the game can still be played.
Yeah.
And that's on a personal level. As long as there's still time on the clock, there's an opportunity for you to make a difference in somebody else's life, for you to serve somebody else, for you to take a moment away from yourself. We keep coming back to that because, like you said, you talk to a lady who probably only gets complaints on the customer service line, and you were able to shift her perspective, and it helped you with your perspective at the same time. And that changed that moment and perhaps the rest of that day. You still didn't get to put the bed together, but you know what? You were like, you know what, people, we have somewhere to lay down. We still have a roof over our head, even though we don't have any power. We got a place, and so you begin to kind of just figure out that we're still living, we're still breathing, there's still time on the clock. Let's make this work the best we can. And it may not always get you a win. I tell people that all the time.
Yeah.
I coached basketball games and we had great talent and all that. And sometimes we still would lose. We would put our best effort forward and we had the best strategy we knew and we still lost. But that was okay because there was still another game to play. There was going to still be another opportunity. And so I think in this environment and in any environment, count the wins. And when you lose, learn from it, because I think when you are learning, you're actually winning. And you can win in the midst of losses if you take it the right way, add it to your recipe for success.
Yep.
And I think life becomes so much more manageable that way.
Right.
I mean, at least for me, it does.
Yeah. Well, it's it's funny you say that because my hat that I've been wearing this hat since prior to February 4th, 2018. I was wearing it. I've got a whole closet of these hats. I got probably 15 of them. I bought a bunch of them after the game. But I've had more people that have said something to me about the Patriots' loss to the Philadelphia Eagles. And that's what this hat is. It's the Super Bowl, Philadelphia Eagles, New England Patriots hat. And I said, this hat I wear, this is to honor the Philadelphia Eagles. And they said, what are you talking about? I said, well, anytime you got two sides of the field that are going to have 400 yards each and just amazing football on both sides, the better team that day was Philadelphia. Got to give them credit, but I still love my Patriots.
That's right.
and I had the conversation with the the Seattle game a couple weeks ago, and people just say, "Well, you guys lost." Yeah, but we played our hearts out.
That's right.
It was down to one play. It was down to one play, and they played their hearts out to that last play. So what do you got to be mad about? It's when you don't try. It's when you don't take that effort. It's when you don't persevere, and it's when you don't have just resiliency is the big buzzword with COVID. But when you're not resilient and when you're not trying, that's when the only time you fail is when you don't actually try.
That's right.
There's success when you are determined to at least give your best effort.
That's right. That's right.
And
my favorite tagline, which you told me to get trademarked, and I did. and that is that your ability to endure is always greater than your willingness to endure.
Yeah.
If you knew in advance what it was you were going to have to deal with in life, you would probably check out.
Yeah.
If you had known that your power was going to be going out and that you were going to have to deal with all of that, you would have been like, look, we got to do something else. But you didn't know, but you were in it, and your ability kicked in, and that human will kicked in to endure and get through these things. And I think people do need to know that your ability to endure things is much greater than you think. What you think is impossible for others is because it is impossible. It is impossible for you because that's not yours to endure. But what you're assigned to endure, you can endure that and you'll make it through that. And people need to understand that right now, that, this is tough, this is hard, but you are equipped and have been qualified to endure and get through to the other side of it and have a story to tell, have some love to give to other people, and to be creative and start over. I mean, I listened to a guy named Dr. Percy Beatty. He said something that I just loved. And he said, let's not mistake this time of reset for recess. And I was like, wow. He said, let's not mistake that. Use this time. This is a time for us to reset and not to take a recess.
Right.
And wow, to me, that said it all right there. I'm like, man, it's going to be all right. Yeah. And I think we just need to know that it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
As crazy as things are, as dark as it may seem, as uncertain as the next days ahead are, you've got to believe that it's going to get better. And it may take some time. It may take some pain. It may take some antibiotics.
Yep.
It may take a wound vac. It may take another surgery, but ultimately it's going to get better.
Yeah.
And I think we need to hear that message today.
Yeah. No, I can't agree with you more. I think that the reality of time and pain is something people have to embrace.
Yes.
As Jason Taylor, past guest, and he wore the shirt at that special episode, you got to embrace the suck. You have to be understanding and not blind to it, and realize that this is painful. It may be the most painful, maybe not, but be ready for it, and
That's right.
and realize all the stuff that you have to adapt to. When I talk to school associations, and I open up, and I'm going to do it tomorrow, I say, how many of you have celebrated since March? And they say, celebrated since March? What are we celebrating? So, well, on March 16th, you all had to close your schools, shut them down. Many of you have 100% free and reduced meals, not just lunches, meals for your students. That means you have 100% of your student population comes in the morning, and they get breakfast, they have lunch, and they stay through dinner.
Yep.
They don't have technology at home. Your brick and mortar buildings are no longer their safe haven. And in a matter of 24, 48, 72 hours, your entire faculty and staff had to, so many of them get in their own personal vehicles and drive Chromebooks to students' homes. You had to figure out how to get those meals to those kids because they still had to eat. Right? You still had to eat. And then you had to figure out how to teach them. And we did it pretty darn good. And then you also had to figure out how to properly care for those buildings, even though people weren't in them, to be prepared for a hopeful reopening in September. And with daily shifts and changes. And you got your community and everybody watching, and they expect the best, and they report the worst. So you all did it. You made it. You're here. Think about all that stuff. If you don't celebrate and clap your hands and say, we've done good so far, we got work to do, let's get going, then something's wrong here. You got to celebrate. And that's right. That's again, that the ability to endure. Like if somebody came to them January 1st and said, hey, we're doing great. The economy's great. Unemployment's the lowest it's been in history. We've got all these great things going on. We've got great technology in our schools. And on March 16th, we're just going to shut it down. Your mind would immediately click on and go, there's no way we can do this.
Mm-hmm.
They're already setting up that mindset failure. Not going to work. And because they had to shift on that fly, that willingness to endure kicked in, and they did it. And no greater example that I can find. And you're absolutely right. My good example from podcast guest is Neil Levine at McGuire's Restaurant and right here in Easton. And, they've had a successful restaurant for 27 years. And you would call 230-8888 and someone might answer the phone within the first 10 or so rings, because they're so darn busy all the time. They're flipping tables a couple times a night, every night, and doing a great job, make great food, but no innovation, no creation. They had their menu, they made their food, everybody was happy. They had their drinks. COVID hit, online ordering system, delivery, curbside, outdoor dining. I said to Neil, I saw him last month. He hosted an Easton Chamber of Commerce meeting, and I said to him, Neil, you've done more in 6 months than you've done in the last 27 years of expanding your opportunity and creating your future and a reset. He never looked at it as recess, which a lot of companies did. But he also looked out for his neighbor, which was one of the most amazing things is through all of this uncertainty and having to do things and look at things differently. The state of Massachusetts allowed for restaurants to sell alcohol with their orders of food, which that's where the money's at. Money isn't in the steak. The money's in the wine that goes with it.
Right.
And he had that opportunity to do that. And he said on the news, he says, I'm not going to do it because my neighbor is a liquor store and I don't want to take business away from that person because they're hurting too.
Wow.
I mean,
wow.
Class act.
That's it right there. That's it right there.
You don't think you have patrons for life for that? I mean, I'm not going to forget that anytime soon.
Wow.
Good human, so
yeah.
No, that Dr. Percy Beatty. Is that?
Yeah. Dr. Percy Beatty. He is, he's a musician and a producer. He actually wrote the song, I Believe I Can Fly. And I know him from, does a bunch of gospel music, and that's what he does. And I've known him for 30 years or so. And I was listening to an interview of his, and he mentioned that, and I was like, wow, that right there is really, really important. And people in that industry, creative people, they get what he's saying. Yeah. He's like, you should be in the studio more than ever, and you should be getting what's next ready and all that type of stuff. And for those who are not creative like me, it's harder to do, but I'm learning to be more creative and to think outside the box and to try different things and to take a class online to learn something that I didn't know before and to put myself in a position to be ready. Yeah. Because whenever it's time to go, I want to be ready to go. I don't want to have to be like getting ready to go. Use that time now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one of the things, one of my takeaways, one of my personal takeaways, because I'm going to be selfish for a minute, and hopefully share something for people is, it's not too late to reset, and I think that I was on recess, and I'll probably periodically admit to being on recess for a couple days or a week at a time every once in a while, because this is a lot. Like I said, I went March to May where I didn't believe that this was going to be a thing. And then in May, I woke up and I'm like, oh, shoot, I got to figure out how to do virtual. I got to figure out how to do this. And I was doing, makeshift setups in my garage. And then I'm like, didn't even think about this going into the summer. And I'm out there and it's 85 degrees. Well, now I got to move to my basement and I got sheets set up in the background so you don't see the cement behind me. And now it's like, I got to build out, an actual space because I need to have a quiet, good space because this isn't going away anytime soon. And it's been a work in progress for me. So if you're on recess and if you've been on recess and if you've been in that, don't stay there.
Don't stay there.
Get out.
Well,
hit Control Alt Delete and shut it off and start over. Hard reboot.
That's right. What's so interesting is that you needed that space anyway. Mm-hmm. You needed a good space to do what you do anyway.
Right.
And this epidemic it forced you
Right.
to do what you needed to do anyway. You needed to have a special place that was, the sound was good and the visuals were good and your mic was good. You needed that anyway.
Right.
And what this did, it pushed you right into it.
Yeah.
And like you said, let me tell you right now, I've had, recess is good to have when you're in school all day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You just can't play all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
at some point you got to work, but I think there's a balance between recess and work, and we all need to go on the playground once in a while and play some dodgeball and a kickball or whatever it is that we do. And then get back on the horse. Cause like you said, we are all dealing with so much.
Right.
And it's interesting how life doesn't stop because of all of the personal things that we deal with, health-wise, financially, and otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing that we don't get a reprieve from that at all.
Right.
We don't get a stop from that. We got to keep pushing through that while we're trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to get my next meal on the table? How am I going to get my next bill paid? You're still dealing with that too.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes you need to just take a little recess. And like you do, go get your big tomahawk steak.
I'm overdue for one of those.
Put that on the grill.
Yep.
And just enjoy life.
Yep.
And I guess, I know we're getting toward the end of our conversation today.
Well, there's no time limit on this one, my friend.
We had
a time limit at Starbucks. We don't have a time limit at our home.
I just think that people need to enjoy life.
Yeah.
Take time to enjoy life, man.
Yeah.
And to smile and to laugh and to bring that into your daily activity, because there's going to be enough stuff to be concerned about, to want to complain about. It's going to be there. Yeah. But man, just enjoy, find something that you enjoy, find a way to do that on a regular basis. It's good for you.
Yeah.
It's healthy for you. It's needed. Even in a good, we seem to do it more when it's easy to do. Now you have to make it a choice.
Yeah.
Now you have to really make it a choice. You almost have to calendarize it, so that you can actually spend that time shutting everything else down and doing that thing you enjoy. You have to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I can't agree more with you. And on that space thing, you're absolutely right. And I would have never thought about it. And, you and I are in the same boat where when we speak, we travel, we always thought we had to travel. And it's like, I've been home for 6 months and I like being home. So now that I have to think about putting all this stuff together and doing all these things, who's to say I can't work from home and do what I was doing on the road moving forward, because everybody's embracing this virtual concept and grow and expand it. So, it's a new opportunity, and it's also a new opportunity for me to be present. And I think that's what I'll do some closing, let you do some closing words. But I think that's one of my takeaways, that I'm a work in progress, is we all need to be more present. With everything, with life, with love, with people, with places, with everything. I think that this COVID thing is, it's teaching us. It's not forcing us. It's teaching us better to be present. And
that's right.
I know that I wasn't. Like I say, I'm still a work in progress, but it's almost impossible to travel as much as I was traveling and be present anywhere, not just home, but where I was going. And this has been an interesting experience for me, because I always thought I was, and then now that I'm home and I get to kind of look around, I was like, man, I haven't been present anywhere. I've been everywhere, but at the same time, I was nowhere.
Wow.
That's been, because it was quick. Everything's quick, right? It's all just a blur.
You just said I was everywhere, but I wasn't anywhere.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That right there, you need to trademark that. Because you're absolutely right. I think that being present thing and being and really being available for real,
Yeah.
not being, you know, that other kind of available, but
Mhm.
really being able to be there. You know, I guess the thing that, and I learned this too, because everybody was struggling and dealing with things, and I was really alone for a long time with this bed rest because my wife was still teaching and all
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. And and I was like, man, no one has time to check on me. I mean, no one has called me. No one has seen how I was doing. And it really made me think about the importance of really being available and
Mhm.
being present and just taking that, you called it the check-in.
Yep.
Man, let me tell you, I already thought I knew the value of that.
Mhm.
But having gone through what I did through that 120 days of bed rest and all that, I have a greater appreciation now, more than I ever have, of the need to check in and the need to be checked in on
Yep.
and how important that is. And everybody doesn't get that, and I understand it, but that doesn't stop me from doing what I think I need to do. And that on the flip side of that, somebody's going to check in on me
Mhm.
as well. And just live your life that way. Be
Yep.
present, be purposeful, you know, be intentional. I call you because I want to know how you're doing.
Mhm.
I'm like, yo, Peaches Cooks. I need to know what I need to
You
know. I need to know what's up. How you doing?
need to know what's on the list for the butcher.
Yeah, that's right. We always get to some seafood or
Yep.
some frog legs or oxtails,
I'm still working on that.
you know. But it's really, I'm like, I wonder how he's doing. I really
Yeah.
want to know, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that be genuine, you know, and it may only be one person that you're that concerned about. Well, then you commit to that person.
Right.
And you commit to making sure that you're checking in with that one person. You don't need 50 million of those.
Yeah.
You know, if you have it, great. But just be committed to that person or those people that you are most concerned with and
Mhm.
make sure they understand and know. The greatest thing a coach or a leader can have is compassion for the people that are part of their team. Because when people know that you really care about them, they will go through a wall for you.
Mhm.
And I don't care how thick that wall is, because they know, as you said, they got your back
Yep.
and that they really want what's best for you in all areas of your life, and that you're going to be present for them when they need you most. What good are you if you can't be there when I need you most?
Right.
What is that? I don't know what that is. And I want to be the kind of person that can be there for you when you need me the most.
Yeah.
And I think that if we all could just kind of take that and personalize it, internalize it, and put it into some action, man, I just think it makes life easier to handle.
Right. Well, it's that, yeah, if you're yeah, as a person, if you put yourself in that position of, something bad's going to happen in your life, something's going to happen in your life that you are going to need someone. If
Mhm.
you can't immediately have a knee jerk of like who you would call that you can count on, I mean, that's, I'm very fortunate. I got a healthy list
That's right.
of folks like that. It's funny when you talk about sometimes you just need to focus on that one person. There was a post on LinkedIn yesterday by Pete Durand, who's going to be on the podcast next week. He started a podcast called Eating Crow that I was a guest on, and he just finished his 10th episode with actually Ed Rossich was on it.
Oh, mhm.
So I was listening to the episode. I was looking at his post, which was saying about some of the struggle that he's had putting the podcast out that we all go through. And I just and he tagged me as a guru, someone that helped him. And I said, I don't know if I would classify myself as that. I'm going to look back at my episode 10 and give myself a listen and compare it to your episode 10. I guarantee you, yours is probably better than mine. As it was, it may or may not have been, but he was having a professional discussion with a successful CEO. I was having a successful discussion drinking Tuaca in a hotel room with a great friend, Ron McCulley, who's a cancer survivor. And in that episode, which I listened to, and I don't listen to my episodes as a rule, I just for whatever reason I did. It was interesting because in that episode, Ron talked about how he had focus on one. Ron's a big card writer, handwritten card writer. My gratitude wall, which is where I put every handwritten anything from someone. It's in my office. It's filled with Ron cards. And he talks about, he's like, I wrote this guy a card every single day because he was battling cancer until he died. And the son, who he never met, actually called. And Ron's like, why are you calling me? And he goes, well, my dad passed away, and there was a handful of people that he wanted me to call and say thank you and let you know all that stuff. And it's like,
wow.
The things that you do, as long as they're the right things, they make a difference in people's lives. You might not, don't expect to hear about it, why you're doing it. Just know that it's making a difference. And that's, sometimes you got to focus on one person that's really dug in and hurting. And if you have the ability, make sure you got a couple people. But yeah, definitely, I play that out. I'm like, something happens, where do I go? And I'm lucky. I mean, I think I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I really do. My mother and my 98-year-old grandmother live next door to us. Amy's mom and brother live in town. We've got a very, strong, family and friends that are close by. So I'm very lucky in that perspective. And I got a lot of great friends in my community, in my circle, that spans all the globe. But, that's one of those exercises people should do, is go, I'm going to need somebody. At some point, I'm going to need somebody. Who's that going to be, and can I count on them? Because it's better to know now than when you're in the trenches and you dug in and you go, I need Mayday, help me, somebody get me, and there's nobody there, because that's when despair happens. So, man, this is great. I could talk to you for like 4 hours, but I know you probably got a million things going on, as you always do. So I give you any closing words. How do people get a hold of you? Are you open to more virtuals? Tell people what to do, where to get your book, all that stuff.
Absolutely. You can reach me on my social media platforms: LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Those are all at DCE Speaks. I am definitely open to virtual conversations, speeches, whatever you want to call them. My website is davidcooksspeaks.com. And you can also pick up my book there. I forgot we didn't talk much about the book today, but that's okay. The book is called Getting Undressed: From Paralysis to Purpose. And I guess a lot of what we did talk about was the book today indirectly. And so that's how you can get a hold of me. I will be dropping a podcast soon and getting one started. It's called Paralysis to Purpose. And hopefully I can have some stories on there that are as inspiring as what you do on Be Awesome, because you really have laid a nice blueprint for a podcast that makes a difference. And yours is so very unique. You're not trying to get quote unquote famous people, but you want people who have famous stories. And I love how you do that.
100%. I have the most famous people that anyone could ever ask for or want. And it's genuine, authentic. It's genuine, authentic relationships. That is what makes this whole thing work. And we didn't talk about your book a whole lot. And I do put your book on my top 10. And I've got a lot of books. I got a lot of audio books. You didn't have an audiobook version. Do you have an audiobook version now?
No, you know what?
With your voice, man.
Yeah, I know. Well, this is the irony of it all. I was about 2/3 of the way through doing the book when I got sick last November with sepsis. And so once I got back on my feet, it's one of the projects I want to finish now, because my voice is strong enough now to do it. So my goal is to wrap that up in the next 30 days and get that out there. So absolutely. And also, it's interesting you mentioned that, because that's one of the areas I'm going to try to pivot into as well, is the audio book reading business, and do that for people, because it's one of the things I'm gifted to. I've been gifted with a voice to use to reach people and touch people and that kind of stuff. And so I'm going to try to branch off in that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's people that'll probably listen to the podcast and be like, I don't know what any of them are talking about, but David's voice angelic. But no, I mean, I say that only because I probably, my ratio of book reading to book listening is like, I read very few books just based on time, but I listen to books every day. Like if I'm not listening to a podcast, I got a book playing. I've stopped listening to music other than very rarely. So, but we didn't talk about your book because I want people to buy it. I think it's
Absolutely
my top 10. I want people to buy the book. You can get it autographed right on his website. And I'll tell you what, I think that people are going to like this episode. I think you're going to have a lot of first-time listeners. And I think I got a lot of long-time listeners that still haven't done a rating or review. So what we're going to do is I got 56 rating and reviews on the Be Awesome podcast platform on Apple. For the next 10 reviews and ratings that I get. So go in, give it a rating. Hopefully it's 5 stars. If it isn't, call me first and tell me what I need to do. Tell me what I need to do to get 5 stars.
That's right.
If you do the rating and review, which means you hit the 5 stars and then you write a review, and it can be, it's awesome, whatever it is, you send Josh at Be Awesome, BEAUSM, Josh, JOSH at beawesome.com. From 57 to 66, I'm going to get a signed copy of David Cook's book sent to your house for you to read, complimentary on me. So that'll hopefully help you. That'll hopefully help me, and that'll help the 10 people that get a chance to read it. So next 10 reviews and ratings gets a copy of David's book. That'll do it here, David. I'm sure I'm going to talk to you later or tomorrow.
Probably tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Saturdays, you got my mouth water and reminded me of the tomahawk. That it's overdue. For those of you that don't know the tomahawk is about it's a bone-in big steak. It's like 3.5 pounds. That just absolutely magnificent. And
boy, you think you like that?
Yeah, every once in a while, I got to treat myself to something special. And Amy always says, one's good enough for both of us. And I get each of us, because I say, I'm not sharing. I don't care how big it is. And I don't care how much you think I can't eat it. I'm not sharing. This is mine. And David called when I went and got my last treat of it. And I took pictures of the before and after and sent them over. So, no, David, this was great. This is fantastic. As much as I love the Starbucks, and it's a story for the ages, getting to have us in our homes, 800 miles away from one another, but just to catch up and do this and share with the audience, it's been fantastic. So
yeah,
appreciate you, my friend. And
thanks for the opportunity as always.
Always and anytime. That'll do it here. We really appreciate everybody's ratings and reviews. I'm going to start getting back on social, putting posts on. So be sure to follow, like, subscribe, share, all that fun stuff. And, keep on doing what you're doing. Stay the course. And as David says, we get some time and probably some pain left, but we're going to get through this. So in the meantime, if you can be anything, be awesome.